Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. It's your girl Lori, and I want to talk to you about allowing people to have their journey that isn't yours. This comes very similar to what I was saying before about meeting people where they are. There's always going to be a massive theme with that, is meeting people where they are, not where you want them to be. Big theme, right? But realizing that everyone's journey isn't yours. And I'm actually doing a 5-episode on YouTube, 5-episode ego death. It's coming up next week, but a 5-episode ego death series to really kind of help you get to this space. But the biggest thing is, you know how sometimes, like I said, you will see a situation that might be familiar with you. You might have already lived it, done it, feared it, whatever. And you see it almost happening like you're watching this go on in front of you, and you want to like jump in and you want to be like, hey man, don't do that. You're going to like mess things up. Yeah. Stay in your lane, including with your kids, including with everything. Even though you see what you think you see, it's not your journey to walk for them. And I've talked to you about this, but it really has come up recently, even more in a lot of my sessions. And I felt like, okay, I really want to have a space for you guys to see this. You can always go back and look at it. But just because someone's journey isn't the same as yours doesn't mean it's wrong. And the biggest thing is to understand that they have to have that journey. And to resist that is your ego, right? Because you want to come in and you either have like a savior complex, that's your fixerness, you know, your fixer mentality. I'm going to save you from something, and you're not doing them any favors. This is where enabling comes into play, and projecting yourself autobiography onto it. And believe me, it's very easy to do. So there's no judgment there, but I want you to be aware of it in understanding that. Think about how you've gotten to where you are today, right? Guess what? You have survived 100% of those times. Remember how you were like, oh my God, how am I going to get through this? This is so hard. Well, you're here. I didn't say it's fun. I know you got some battle wounds, but you did it. But it was your journey to walk, right? You know, and I've said this before, if somebody says, hey, there's that button, don't push that button, you go, really want to push that button. I'm going to push that button, because now people are telling you not to do it, or they're trying to change the trajectory. Sometimes you got to push the button and realize, whoa, I shouldn't have pushed the button. But that is your ego. Okay. And I wanted to do a few like ego videos again, and I say again, because very often we go back into reverting into our ego, and you're not aware of it. And I think the big misconception with ego is that, oh, you're all about yourself. How can I have an ego if I don't even like myself? No, that's when you have your ego the biggest. So there's different levels of it. And one of those is trying to change someone's direction. And you cannot do that. So this is where that staying in your lane thing becomes imperative. You're there if someone needs you. If someone says to you, hey, starting this plan. And even then you could say, give them something to think about. Say, okay, I hear what you're asking me. Well, what are some things that you're fearing in it, right? You don't have to therapize them or anything, but let them sort of talk it through sometimes. Sometimes they will answer their own questions and come up with their own answers, because the reason you want to be careful in giving advice and changing their journey is because you're giving advice based on your lens, your experience, and your fears. So you're not rude by not answering somebody. You could just say, hey, listen, I know what I would do for me, but that might not work for you. Be honest in knowing that. So when you let someone have that journey, even though you can see the journey in your head, you can see the journey for what it is, they have to experience that. Just like, I'm gonna flip that for you. Just like be careful, I cannot talk. Be careful of asking everybody, should I do this? Should I do that? Should I do this? Should I do that? Should I do this? Should I do that? Because again, they can only give you that. That's why the whole external validation thing is never going to be valid for internal peace, because it's only coming from this lens from a person. So the same way you want to let someone else have their journey, you have to be willing to walk your journey in the uncertainty. So you have to do the journey in the uncertainty, because that's the imperative place for you. You have to be in a space to embrace the unknown, embrace what if I mess this up? Embrace those things. You have to be in a space to do that. That's gonna come with the ego shedding and ego death that we're gonna talk about. But again, it's the biggest thing is to stay in your lane. And that can be hard for some people because you don't want your kids to mess up, or you don't want them to go down the path you did, or you don't want these people to mess up. I hear you. But you're not the savior here. You can't come in and rescue them from everything in which they do, because what if something happens to you? What if you get abducted by aliens tomorrow? Okay? A person has to have the tools in resilience. The reason that you have survived 100% of your stuff, and you have because you're sitting here right now, like I said, it wasn't easy, but you're here, is it's taught you resilience. Whether you have the depression, whether you have the anxiety, I hear you, okay? But I want you to keep in mind that if someone kept preventing you and protecting you and preventing and protecting you and then sent you out into the world, you would be blindsided, right? You have to have resilience. You have to be, because again, remember this, everyone can perform fabulous when things are going good. That's not, you don't get any special bells and whistles for that. But it's how you respond and based on resilience. So by you preventing somebody else's growth and journey and mistakes and all of those things, you're not doing them any favors. That's your ego. Check your ego at the door. You can have great intentions. You can be kind. You can be caring. You can come from an amazing place of intent, not your journey. Okay? And that's the biggest thing. And I promise you, when you can start doing the ego death and releasing that ego, which is coming, it's going to be easier for you because you're going to notice it. And you're going to see it and you're going to appreciate it for what it is, because everyone has to walk. Just because, let's say somebody walked in your exact footprints, they're not getting the experience. Good, bad, or indifferent, they have to have that experience for themselves. You telling them not to do something and you willing them and worrying about them till the cows come home. Listen, you're allowed to have compassion and empathy, but you got to check yourself at the door, because it's not for them to be in the safe zone all the time to make you feel better. That's ego. So I want you to really start being mindful here when you see yourself wanting to jump in and save the day. And, you know, when you see yourself doing that, just say, hey, listen, I know I'm coming from a good place. I don't want them to be hurt, or I don't want them to go through bad experiences, but it's not my journey. Like, you literally have to talk to yourself and say, it's not my journey. I'm here to pick up the pieces if they need be, but you're not there to save the day. You're not there to coddle. You're not there to be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, you can't, that's not going to be beneficial and helpful. They have to walk the same journey, not the same journey, but their own journey, just like you've had to, and you continue to have to walk your own journey. Your journey can't be in somebody else's footsteps. That's why you can't change yourself to fit into the spouse, or change yourself to fit into the sister or the mom. Don't change yourself. You're like trying to follow them into their own trajectory, and that's not your goal. Your journey is your journey, and their journey is their journey. Observe it, be there to support it, but back up and stay out of it and stay in your lane.